Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving into a really fascinating and honestly kind of unsettling behavioral mystery. We're looking at a quirk in human psychology that goes against pretty much everything we'd like to believe about ourselves and our society. Why do people, perfectly good, capable people, just fail to help others in moments of desperate need? It's a wild investigative journey into the human mind, and I promise you, by the end of our time together, you're going to look at crowds in a completely different way. So picture this. You're walking through a buzzing public space. Maybe it's a packed subway terminal at rush hour or just a crowded city park on a gorgeous Saturday afternoon. There are dozens, maybe hundreds of people all around you. Suddenly, an emergency happens, right in front of everyone. Someone collapses or a loud, alarming commotion breaks out. Now, instinct tells you that with all these people around, help is an absolute guarantee, right? But instead, the whole crowd just freezes. Everyone stops. Everyone stares. Why on earth does that happen? Really paint that picture in your mind for a second. A crowded place, an urgent emergency, and literally nobody moves. If you were standing right there, holding your morning coffee, watching the whole scene unfold, what would you do? I mean, we all want to immediately say, oh, I dropped my coffee and rush in to help. But decades of psychological research actually suggest your reaction might be, well, very different from what you'd hope. It's a chilling thought, isn't it? The sheer presence of other people can actually paralyze our individual ability to act.
Section 1. The mystery of an action. To truly unpack this, we need to put a formal name to it. Look, this isn't about malice, and it's definitely not about a lack of empathy in the individuals who are present. It's called the bystander effect. By definition, it's a well-documented social psychological phenomenon where the presence of others actively discourages a person from intervening in an emergency situation. The absolute crucial takeaway here is that a crowd doesn't bring safety, a crowd brings hesitation. The more people who are there to witness an event, the less likely it is that any single one of them will step forward to help.
Section 2, Darley and Latané's experiments. Okay, let's dive into this by looking at exactly where this research started. To really get the bystander effect, we have to look back at the groundbreaking work of two psychologists, John Darley and Bib Latané. Back in the late 1960s, they wanted to measure exactly how the size of a group impacts our willingness to help. So they set up these highly controlled, classic experiments where participants were placed in a room and believed they were listening to someone else having a severe medical emergency. And wow, the data they gathered is striking. They compared participants who thought they were witnessing the emergency completely alone against those who thought they were part of a larger group. The results tell a dramatic sequential story. When participants thought they were the only one aware of the situation, the intervention rate was incredibly high and their reaction times were lightning fast. But the exact moment they believed other people were also listening in, the intervention rates practically fell off a cliff, and the time it took for anyone to react dragged way, way out. The group dynamic literally suppressed their urge to act. Section 3, Why we fail to act.
So what exactly is going on in our brains to override our basic human instinct to assist someone in trouble? Today, we're focusing heavily on this why, because honestly, understanding the hidden mechanics of this effect is the only way we can beat it. Researchers have nailed it down to 3 primary psychological culprits that trap our minds during these critical, high-stress moments. Number 1, diffusion of responsibility. Number 2, social proof. And number 3, the fear of making mistakes. In the heat of the moment, these 3 cognitive forces merge together to create a perfect storm of inaction. Let's break them down one by one. And this brilliantly illustrates our very first culprit, the diffusion of responsibility. Think of responsibility like a pie. If you're the only person who sees a car break down on a totally deserted road, 100% of the responsibility to help rests solely on your shoulders. You are the entire pie. But put yourself in a crowd of 50 people, suddenly your psychological slice of that responsibility shrinks down to practically nothing, maybe just 2%. You naturally start to assume, hey, surely someone else here is more qualified, or closer, or already has their phone out. We subconsciously distribute the burden of action among everyone present until it's so diluted that no one acts at all. Moving on to our second mechanism, social proof. You know, when something ambiguous happens, a loud crash, a scream, someone slumping over, our brains instantly try to interpret it. We think, wait, is this an actual emergency? And to figure that out, we instinctively scan the room to see how everyone else is reacting. But here is the massive trap. Everyone else is doing the exact same thing. Since everybody's trying to remain calm while scanning the crowd,
Nobody is outwardly panicking. So we look at this collective inaction and falsely interpret it as evidence that everything is totally fine. We think to ourselves, well, nobody else is panicking, so it must not be a big deal. The third mechanism that paralyzes us is the sheer fear of making a mistake. In public settings, we humans have a deeply hardwired fear of embarrassment. We are utterly terrified of misinterpreting a situation and looking foolish. We think, what if that person isn't having a medical episode, but they're just taking a nap? What if they're just arguing with a friend and my stepping in makes it way worse? This fear of overreacting or somehow breaking social norms builds a massive mental hurdle. We would honestly rather stay silent and just blend into the crowd than risk the social embarrassment of being wrong.
Section 4. The modern-day bystander.
Now, Darley and Latané ran their classic experiments way back in the 1960s, long before smartphones. But those psychological mechanisms, yeah, they definitely haven't disappeared. Today, the bystander effect manifests heavily through the social media screen. Think about the whole concept of a digital crowd. When you're scrolling past a post asking for help, maybe a GoFundMe for a medical emergency, or even a toxic interaction in a comment section, you are witnessing that event alongside potentially millions of other people. The diffusion of responsibility is exponentially higher online. We just assume that because thousands of other people have seen this post, well, someone else has surely already donated or intervened or reported the issue. The screen essentially acts as this massive barrier that further dilutes our own sense of personal obligation.
Section 5. How to overcome it.
So how do we actually fight back against this? Well, simply by learning about the bystander effect today, you're already halfway to defeating it. But overriding that psychological hesitation really comes down to a practical 4-step process of conscious assessment. Step 1. You have to actively notice the event. Pay attention to your surroundings. Step 2. Interpret it as an emergency. If you're ever on the fence, always err on the side of caution. Ignore social proof and just trust your own gut. Step 3. Assume personal responsibility. Do not look around for someone else to act. Literally tell yourself, I am the one who has to do this. And step 4, confidently offer help. Oh, and here's a pro tip. If you are ever the victim in a crowd, you can force other people through these steps by pointing directly at a specific individual and saying, you, in the blue shirt, call for help. Doing that instantly destroys the diffusion of responsibility. The really crucial point here is that small actions make a massive difference. You do not need to be some highly trained superhero to intervene. You don't have to single-handedly save the day. Sometimes stepping up just means pulling out your phone to make a quick call, asking someone, hey, are you okay? Or literally just standing next to a vulnerable person. The most incredible thing about the bystander effect is that it's surprisingly fragile. The very second one single person breaks from the crowd and takes personal responsibility, the freeze just shatters. The rest of the crowd will almost always snap right out of it and rush in to help too. Your one small move is all it takes to permit everyone else to act. We really want to leave you with this thought today. Empathy and personal responsibility are the keys to breaking the cycle of inaction. Look, the science clearly shows us that our brains are naturally wired to look to the crowd for cues and to shy away from sticking our necks out. But we aren't just biological machines, right? We have empathy, we have willpower, and most importantly, we have the capacity to make conscious individual choices that completely defy our baseline programming.
And that brings us to our final provocative question for you. The next time you're out in a crowded place and something totally unexpected happens, the next time you feel that heavy, silent pressure of the crowd telling you to just stand still and watch, what are you going to do? Now that you know the invisible forces at play, next time, will you step up? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating topic with us. Take this knowledge with you and use it to make a real difference out there.